Everyone. Welcome to Vista Center's Tech It Out. My name is Morgan Pimentel, and I am one of the assistive technology specialists here at Vista Center. I'm thrilled that you joined us for today's presentation. We're recording today's meeting. If you do not want to be recorded, you can turn off your camera or please feel free to exit the meeting. In a couple of weeks, our today's recording will be uploaded to our website, vistacenter.org, under accessible technology, then check it out. It will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so please be sure to check it out, give us a follow and a like while you're there. We hold these monthly Tech It Out meetings every first Friday of the month, unless otherwise specified. As an attendee today, your name will be added to our email list and you will receive an email 1 to 2 weeks prior to the next meeting. Our next Tech It Out will be on Friday, May 1st at 10 a.m. For today's presentation, my co-host Alice has muted everyone. During question and answer time after the presentation, if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and my co-host Alice will call on you. When you're called on, your hand will be lowered. If you're not familiar with Zoom meeting controls, on a PC, it's Alt plus Y to raise and lower your hand, Alt plus A to mute and unmute yourself. Holding down the space bar also will unmute you on demand, and then when you want to mute yourself again, just lift your finger off of the space bar. On a Mac, it's Option plus Y to raise and lower your hand. It's Command plus Shift plus A to unmute and unmute yourself. And if you're calling in from a phone, it's *9 to raise and lower your hand, *6 to mute and unmute yourself. And without further delay, I'd love to introduce Sarahelizabeth Baguhn, Research Specialist at American Foundation for the Blind. Sarah, please take it away.
Thanks so much. I am so excited to be here to speak with you all today about some of the ongoing research that the American Foundation for the Blind has been doing over the past year and a half. This presentation is entitled Disabled Perspectives on Artificial Intelligence, and will cover 2 of our recent studies. Now, I do have to confess, as she said, I am the research specialist at the American Foundation for the Blind, which does mean I am quite a bit of a research nerd. So do feel free to interrupt if you have questions or if I'm going at a too quick a pace. And I am going to intentionally go kind of quickly through our older study so that we can spend more time on the newest study on artificial intelligence and kind of dig into the meat of those findings more thoroughly. So what do we know from the get-go about disability and technology, and why is the American Foundation for the Blind so interested in exploring this space right now? We know that technology can provide unique accessibility solutions for people with disabilities, that AI development has the potential to support that accessibility for all of us. We also know that AI can create risks of new forms of discrimination or new applications of existing forms. And with these things in mind, we are focusing our research on disability and technology and that intersection with AI in the coming era. I do want to share with you 2 studies today. The first study was a Delphi study we did with experts predicting how AI would impact people with disabilities. And then that second study that we'll spend more time on is the current national survey of AI users with and without disabilities. As was already mentioned, I am Sarahelizabeth Baguhn. If you have questions after this study, you can reach out to me at sbaguhn@afb.org for more information. So our first study looked at exploring AI. We wanted to understand what artificial intelligence opportunities and challenges were coming down the pipeline for people with disabilities. We've explored this in several domains: transportation, education, employment, healthcare, and assistive technology, to name a few. I am sure that you have encountered transportation needs in your life. You've engaged with education. Most of you have probably either been employed or been in a household where someone is employed, had to access healthcare, used assistive technology, and more. The reason we segregate the topics like this is largely that it's broken down in ways that areas of life are regulated in the federal government, so that education policy is sort of a different wheelhouse than employment laws or healthcare policy. And so having our topics aligned that way helps us with our advocacy goals to be able to talk to politicians about each thing. Our first study used Delphi methods, which is just a process of interviews that repeat with a bunch of experts, trying to get them all to agree with each other. As you might imagine, if you ask 5 experts what they think on something, you're going to get 7 or 15 different answers rather than one. And the point of a Delphi study is an ongoing process of negotiation to try and find where they can agree, because there's pretty good evidence that when all of the experts in a field agree on something, that thing is probably true and or is probably coming in the near future. We also looked at statements that they disagreed about and asked them to justify why, because that gives us some good insight into understanding what nuances and possibilities and opportunities might be kind of around the edges of that disagreement. In doing so, we did find our experts were able to agree on a lot of things. And that was really cool because we had experts from the tech industry, from academia and universities, as well as from the federal government's policy divisions. So people who often are not in agreement on things, makes it even stronger that there were some commonalities. Our first key finding was that everyone believed there were probably benefits to AI, that on-device text recognition AI apps will be especially beneficial to people who are blind and low vision users. I think a few people on this call have already today referenced using something to that effect on their phone in lieu of a human reader or human describer. And in the transportation domain, that AI will likely improve wayfinding support, kind of those turn-by-turn directions, as well as sidewalk accessibility for pedestrians with disabilities. The group of experts agreed there were serious accessibility concerns that will need to be addressed. Mainstream AI systems are likely to come to classrooms and educational settings before they're fully accessible. And image generating tools, the sorts of things where you type in a prompt and have it make a picture for you, are currently pretty unusable by blind users because there's not a way to check the accuracy. There are concerns about bias and discrimination. Automation bias is a big one. Automation bias is the reality that most people tend to trust a computer decision as being impartial, which is problematic in AI because AI is not inherently impartial. It, by nature, amplifies the biases it was trained on. So if people are trusting that computers are usually an impartial source, and then are given the task of checking the AI's work to make sure it's fair, they might tend to say, oh, yes, I'm sure it's fair, more readily than they should, and not really give it the due scrutiny. AI can show biases against people with non-average characteristics. And I know as a person who's blind that the very nature of my blindness is a non-average characteristic. Right out of the gate, that's how we end up in this population. This raises concerns about issues like AI denying healthcare to people with disabilities because they have unusual or complex care needs. Our experts agreed that with these risks in mind, there needed to be human oversight in high-stakes situations, such as hiring, education decisions, medical decision-making, or employer screening to determine what candidates can be move forward in job application rounds. Our experts agreed that AI needs the disability community to be involved at all stages of design, development, deployment, acquisition, maintenance, and review of AI tools. Our experts also agreed that we need regulation to be proactive, to have disability communities at the helm, to specifically protect the rights of people with disabilities and to specifically require accessibility for AI systems. This was probably my favorite finding from our first study because when you've got industry moguls saying we need to be regulated, that's a pretty strong signal on the importance. Another key finding that our experts agreed on was that AI needed to try to expand inclusion. It was not enough to just avoid harm done by AI, but really that we should be leveraging AI to actively expand access and inclusion. There were some things, though, that the experts across the panel could not agree on. One of those diverging opinions is autonomous vehicles. Some thought autonomous vehicles may be coming soon to a parking lot near you. Others thought there were financial challenges, technology limits, safety concerns, or other regulatory issues that are going to make adoption slower. So that, I think, depends a little on your region. And given that this is in California, how many of you guys have had the opportunity to ride in autonomous vehicles? Is that something that's in your region, or is that farther north than you guys?
Oregon. Personally, I take Waymo all over every day, all the time. It's my primary way of getting around now.
Excellent. I'm so happy to hear that. I had
Yeah.
a blast riding in Waymos last September when we were out visiting your way. And I have came home with a lot of notes on how I think that's affecting transportation and mobility already. And I can't wait to see how that plays out as it spreads. So very exciting.
There are some pretty big accessibility challenges with it, though. I don't
There
know.
are.
Yeah.
And if we have time at the end, I will go off the rails and talk more about the
Great.
the tertiary things that are
Uh,
going on. It's
Okay.
so exciting. It's exciting because I'm a scientist and I'm a nerd and I'm just fascinated by the trickle down effect of so many things that are impacted there in the accessibility space.
Excellent.
Other diverging opinions as I get myself back on track for a minute. Benefits to employees. Some experts say that AI will boost disabled productivity and workplace inclusion, while others said, hey, this could actually just widen the gap and make more problems than it solves. So we'll have to wait and see on some of that. If you would like to join me in nerding and have all of these findings at your fingertips, you can find the giant list of tables at afb.org/AI research. And that will have tables of everything they agreed on, everything that some people thought was worth saying, but that they didn't agree on. Feel free to peruse them for your own benefit. But that brings us to our second and our current study on artificial intelligence, which is a cross-disability user survey. This has been the big work of the winter season for us at AFB as we gathered a cross-disability pool of 1,070 people with disabilities and 665 non-disabled Americans to fill out our survey. The survey was created with input from more than 15 different disability organizations. So this is not solely a blindness study. Blindness is one of the larger represented disability groups for obvious reasons with AFB at the leadership table, but we did include people from all different kinds of disability groups and ask questions about everything from how they learned AI to how they were using it, attitudes toward autonomous vehicles, beliefs about privacy, and so many, many more things. And this has been really a great opportunity to move from the theoretical of what do we think the issues are going to be? What do we want to guard against or lean in to build more of? Into how are disabled users using AI tools already? Is it being equitable? Are people having a fair or similar experience to people without disabilities? What are the advantages already happening? What are the biases already happening? And so this is our opportunity to take a real snapshot of kind of at the end of 2025, what's going on in the market. We did see some differences in use by whether or not people were disabled. So for things that are clearly assistive technology roles, like visual image description, uh, we see a much higher rate of people with disabilities using it. Unfortunately, we also had a much higher rate of people with disabilities reporting medical insurance denials, that an algorithm had denied them access to healthcare in the past 2 years. For note-taking and writing and employee surveillance, non-disabled people are using that slightly more, which might indicate some barriers to accessibility that are keeping it from working with people who have disabilities. For captions, people with disabilities use captions more often than people without disabilities, and I think we can thank the deaf and hard of hearing people in our communities for that difference. And then as we get down to things like whether or not AI is used in an educational setting, that effect was the same for people with or without disabilities because it's something the school is providing to all students regardless of their disability status. In the domain of transportation, we asked people whether they had had experience with autonomous vehicles, and these are like your Waymos, right? Things that are no driver in the driver's seat. Sometimes in industry, it's called a level 4 or 5 autonomous vehicle, so it's fully driverless, self-controlled. 50% of people with disabilities and 42% of people without disabilities thought it was at least somewhat important to develop AVs. So those of us who are non-drivers probably have a little more reason to care that there should be an autonomous vehicle solution, but it's not a huge difference. Regardless of disability, nearly everyone, 98% of participants, thought that public transit is at least somewhat important, or very important, or extremely important. So even folks who drive their own car and are probably always going everywhere in their own personal vehicle do recognize that public transit is an important need in our society. And I think that's really important for our advocacy to build communities that are more accessible to us. 52% of people think transportation will be improved by AI, while only 11.6% of people think it will not be. There is a substantial group of people who just aren't sure what's coming down the road on that. In job applications, we did ask participants whether they had applied for jobs in the past 2 years. Among those who had, 43% of job seekers had to complete an automated test or an interview already as part of their job seeking process. Most commonly, this was a computer-based multiple choice test or a video interview where an AI bot was having a face-to-face conversation with the interviewee and putting them through their questions. So rather than have a human hiring manager sit there and read the list of questions and record the candidates' responses, that's now being automated by AI in a lot of cases. 62% of people said the test was either probably or definitely AI-based. Sometimes you can clearly tell. Sometimes people are not sure and it might be AI. And of course, sometimes people might be sure it's AI and it actually might just be a standard computer system. We looked at how people were using AI for note-taking and writing. Regardless of disability status, most people believe that AI saves them time. Disability status was not strongly associated with task patterns or frequency of use, although we did see that non-native English speakers were more likely than native English speakers to use AI for note-taking and writing at least once a week or more frequently. Blind users were more likely to say that AI was extremely helpful for note-taking and writing at 55% versus only 47% of sighted users. So that's a little bit of a difference in our communities. Overall, ChatGPT is the most commonly used tool for support with writing, followed by Gemini, Grammarly, and Copilot, and then all of the other AIs were substantially less widely used in our sample. The most frequent beneficiaries of AI for note-taking were English language learners, who used it almost daily in many cases. Deaf users also rated daily or weekly use pretty highly. And disabled users were not necessarily consistently different from non-disabled users across the board on that. A little on voice-activated AI, and I had to mute my device in my room. I apologize if I set off any of your rooms as I go through this content. But Siri and Alexa are by far and away the most common voice-activated AI systems people are using. Everybody is using it. We, in our survey, had anticipated that we would have some people respond who don't use AI at all. And we had a whole question batch lined up to ask folks who don't use AI, why don't you use AI? What are you concerned about? What are you avoiding it for? And in the end, we didn't find anyone who was not using at least some AI tools. Voice activated AI like your Siri or your Alexa or a Google Home device were the most common thing people were using if they were using only one kind of tool. And we especially saw in kind of our older Americans demographic, folks using just their Alexa and nothing else as their sole kind of entryway to AI. When using voice-activated AI assistants, disabled users have a much wider variety of tasks that they're using AI tools for. Blind people were likely to report using their tools to play audiobooks, play music, engage with games, search the web, check on weather or check on news, send messages, and more. People without disabilities were likely to use it for just 2 or 3 tasks consistently and not have quite that breadth of how much it can do for them in their lives or how many different types of things it can do for them. So that brings us to get into the thick of how disabled users are using AI right now. AI image description is, of course, a huge one for me as a person who's totally blind. I love to take pictures of my kids and send them to their grandparents, and AI image description is essential for my ability to make sure I've got the kid in frame and all that cute stuff. 80% of people who are blind or have low vision are using AI for some form of image description. 49% of people reported using it daily, and another 35% of people who are blind or low vision said they use it at least weekly. So that very quickly is totaling up to nearly 85% of our population using it quite frequently. When asked about the accuracy, people who are blind or low vision tended to report that visual description AIs were highly accurate or very accurate, and sighted people were a little more likely to be cautious and say that no, they see some errors in what those descriptions are saying. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the amount of trust or accuracy people are finding with these tools. We know that 53.5% of all people thought the descriptions were mostly accurate, with 27.6% thinking they were somewhat accurate and 7.5% being all the way out on the end saying it's extremely accurate. Like I said before, blind people were generally more trusting of AI image description than sighted or non-disabled people. And 91 people in our survey who have disabilities, as well as 15% of people, or 15 people who don't have disabilities, took the time to report to us harms that were done to them, issues, problems that arose as a result of an image description mistake. So what do those look like? What is the problem when you ask AI, hey, describe the scene to me, or hey, Alexa, what is this? And she gets it wrong. What could happen? This can range from minor annoyances to severe harm. One person shared a story with us where they used it to read a vending machine and the AI hallucinated the location of the item. So they got something they did not like or want. Can imagine that this could be an annoyance, right? If you're going for Cheetos and you end up getting Doritos, you're like, I'm annoyed. That's not exactly what I wanted, but you still got a bag of chips and life can probably go on. You also might have somebody who thought they were getting Cheetos and ended up getting a Snickers bar and is allergic to peanuts and then has something that they absolutely cannot eat. That would be a little more serious. One participant shared with us that AI described them as older than they were by almost 10 years, and they were pretty offended by that egregious mischaracterization of their age. A participant shared that they used Copilot to reformat their tax form because they couldn't read the PDF as it was provided. Copilot provided some very incorrect information that, had they not caught, would have caused serious tax filing mistakes. So that's a little more serious application of where AI can get things wrong. Another participant shared that they'd used AI to read package instructions on a tube of topical medication. They asked the AI, what are the directions for use? Like specifically, how do I use this? And the AI told them, Chew 4 tablets twice a day. I can only imagine chewing 4 tablets of an ointment for, like, clearly not. Clearly not. Luckily, that person had the good sense to not follow those instructions, but medication errors can be extremely risky, so having misinformation in these contexts could have serious harms for people. Uh, Tips related to this is that participants clearly want instructions on how to align their camera, how to have user customizable levels of detail and length of descriptions when they are interacting with a visual description agent. They want to be able to add cultural references. People were clear in their comments and aspirations that they do not want visual image description to censor for adult users. That if you are asking for information that the AI system is capable of providing, it should be allowed to provide it for you and not be censoring how adults use their technology. People would like faster responses and more secure data handling, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on in the privacy section. Uh, for folks wanting to get the most out of the tools currently available, people can benefit from practicing camera alignment and being able to get clear views of things because visual image description apps are very susceptible to the quality of the photo that comes in the first place. And also to be aware of if something feels off at all, to either check with a human, check by retaking the photo at a different angle, check by using a different prompt, a different app, or a different model to try and confirm information. And if you're expecting people to use image description in a classroom or another high stakes environment, to make accommodations for when inaccuracies arise, that the person using a tool should not necessarily be penalized for mistakes that the tool provides them. Our next section is on employment and job seeking. So from our participants, we had 1,462 participants in our study who are employed, who do work. 68% of those people reported using AI at work already. There are no major differences by disability, age, or gender in who is using AI on the job. Our follow-up questions looked for kind of the functions that people were using it for and the impact it was having on their workspace. So today, workers are using AI most frequently for help with writing, with nearly 70% of users in that space. Help doing research and help with note-taking are the runners-up, followed by people engaging with chatbots or AI tools specific to their job. We do see a little bit of a divergence between the disabled and non-disabled populations on the tasks related to disability, such as writing captions or visual image description AI. This speaks to AI being used as an assistive technology. Disabled workers reported higher accessibility use cases, and some reported creating accessible materials as well, that they were using AI to create captions on videos they produce, not just to have captions to consume themselves, or that they were using visual description AI to generate alt text for images for, as I've done here, a presentation that they're going to make as a blind person to an audience that has mixed vision. The impact ratings were pretty mixed. As much as we would hope that having a tool at your job makes your job easier, only 56% of people said that the tools are making their job easier, and 44% said it's still making their job harder. We're in kind of a cusp moment where AI is coming out very, very quickly, and that does mean that a worker implementing AI needs to then spend some serious time and energy verifying that the outputs are accurate and usable. We can't just take it as given. And so sometimes you get into a situation where you use the tool to try and save time, and then it takes just as much or more time to verify, correct, and adjust the output from the tool. Among our job seekers, people who applied for jobs within the last 2 years, 42% completed automated tests or interviews, nearly 200 people. The most common formats, as I mentioned earlier, were multiple choice assessments or computer-led video interviews. People most frequently said that time pressure was an issue with the accessibility of these things. In addition to insufficient time, 7.4% of people with disabilities reported that there was an issue where they had to change something on their device in order to let the AI function, versus only 1.7% of non-disabled users. For our blind users, that often meant turning off their screen reader or their screen magnifier, which can render a computer almost useless, if not completely useless. So if that occurs to you, right, if you're applying for a job and they want to interview you and their AI system requires your screen reader be turned off so that they can be sure you're not looking up answers on the internet or whatever it's trying to do, whatever its intent is when it requires that change, then you've got somebody sitting at a computer they can no longer control, operate, navigate. That's a huge impact. And it's not a huge impact that people without disabilities are facing at all. So we need to be really cautious of that. Uh, Other difficulties were also reported at nearly 3 times the rate by people with disabilities than people without, where they sort of got to write in their own answers, and I can't aggregate them succinctly for you, but there are a lot of glitches that people with disabilities are running into that folks without disabilities just aren't facing. And I know that's not terribly different than our lived experience prior to the emergence of AI, but we certainly want to advocate for AI not exacerbating or continuing these trends. Some of the other examples reported included having visual-only tasks that they had to do, solving a visual puzzle or responding to visual information on screen. One person was being tested for a dual language proficiency as a feature of their job, right? So in their application process, hey, I'm an English and a Spanish speaker was named. And so the company was testing, do you speak Spanish? Effectively enough for us to give you the job role that requires Spanish. And the test was name the picture that we show you on screen visually in Spanish, rapid fire. The person couldn't see the pictures because they were blind. These sorts of things set up a barrier. And when it's not disclosed to participants that the testing that's going to be done as part of their job application process will be AI testing, it takes away their opportunity to ask for a reasonable accommodation, right? If I play out that situation with Spanish language in my head, if they were taking this test in a room with an interviewer and the interviewer handed them a picture and they said, well, I'm blind, I can't describe that picture, but I could speak to you in Spanish about things I know about or physical things in this room, or we could have a conversation in Spanish. There's lots of other ways I can demonstrate that I speak Spanish to you. A real human has a lot of cognitive flexibility to respond to that request on the fly without it being an advanced filing of an accommodation notice that I'm going to need the testing to be non-visual. An AI system has none of that cognitive flexibility, right? It knows that it is going to listen for your pronunciation given a set pack of answers that it's ready to receive, and either you meet it or you don't. Without the advance warning that AI is going to be used, people are not able to have access to their accommodations for the job interview process that prevent them from being effectively assessed about whether they can do the core function of a job. So that's really a huge barrier that risks lost job opportunities for people with disabilities at a really unfair rate. I'll share with you a little about captions because the deaf community was a significant player here. And of course, people who are blind or have low vision may also experience hearing loss in their lifetime. AI caption errors were reported at a high rate. Participants were asked whether AI captions made mistakes, caused harm, or made their life harder, very similar to how we discussed in the AI image description category. And both disabled and non-disabled users here reported impacts again. Some of the harms were different by disability status. So again, when we ask people to kind of write in and open-ended tell us, explain a time where this really hurt you, we do have a much higher response rate from people with disabilities than people without, which makes sense. If you are deaf and relying on captions to get information and the caption is wrong, you're much more likely to be hurt by that than if you are hearing and using the captions as a supplement or a support. And if it gets something wrong, you can fall back on what you heard. The types of caption errors that participants described included incorrect critical information, socially harmful miscaptioning, things that cause distress or confusion. Some of the stories from this section were really telling. One person reported captions that displayed an offensive word incorrectly. They were in a business meeting, and every time one of their colleagues said something, it reported the caption, transcribed it as the N-word, making everyone on the Zoom call just incredibly uncomfortable. Really changes the tone and dynamic of a negotiation. Things are just not going to go as smoothly anymore at that point. We also had a caption failure where somebody was told to use AI captions as their accommodation for meetings, and it got the date wrong that something was due. And that was considered part of a pattern of misdates behavior and ended up resulting in the end in the person losing their job over it. Whether all of that is AI or AI is just an AI caption error is just the final straw, it's still a terrible consequence borne by the human with a disability over a mistake that the AI is making. It's also really interesting, uh, similar to how visual image descriptions varied in trust by people who were blind versus people who are sighted. We asked about the accuracy of AI captions to people who are hearing and people who are deaf or had or hard of hearing. Hearing people tended to report that captions were extremely accurate or mostly accurate at a higher rate than deaf people. And deaf or hard of hearing people reported it was only somewhat accurate or even not at all accurate at a higher rate than hearing people, which probably means that hearing people are a little bit over optimistic or are automatically correcting for those mistakes as they're hearing it at the same time, and also indicates that the people who are deaf or hard of hearing are experiencing more severe consequences from those mistakes, making them more likely to recall and attest them. So, because disabled users are more likely to report caption harms and rate them as only somewhat accurate, we think it's really important that accuracy improvements continue to be made in the captioning space. We also think it's really important that AI captions not be the only accessibility tool offered, especially in high stakes settings. So let's talk a little about privacy. If you're using an AI tool for anything in your daily life, you've probably had to check a box that says, I agree to the privacy terms and conditions here, right? How many of you guys have read the 38-page legalese that comes with that every time you've checked the box? I'm guessing nobody reads it every time. So we do ask people how they feel about privacy. Do you want your data being shared with companies? Are you okay with it being shared if it's worthwhile to you? And what we found is a 38-point drop in people's comfort with privacy depending on where that data goes. 57% of visual description users would choose to use an AI tool to get an image, scene, described to them, to say what's in something, to share, to answer questions about their environment if that's right there on their phone or on their local device and that information is not saved. If we change that theoretical question and say, would you like to use AI as your visual description if it is going to be shared with the parent company, if they're able to store those images or retain that data? It drops to only 19% of people who are comfortable using the AI tool in that environment. People have a strong human preference for private information. 73% of people still prefer a human agent if the information that they need to share during a chat session is considered private, like an account number or personal identifiable information. This shows us that AI has not yet earned kind of the confidentiality trust that human professionals have. We also really deeply explored privacy versus independence because for a long time, tech companies have been banking on that people with disabilities are willing to give up their privacy if it will get us another slice of independence or speed of access. When we asked our rather large sample, Everyone tended to value privacy more than independence. People with disabilities and people without disabilities care more about keeping their personal private information to themselves safe and secure than they care about getting independence. Given, once we take as granted that everybody prefers privacy, um, then if we try and split the hairs and say, well, what if you have to make a trade? What if you have to make a trade between privacy and independence? Are you willing to? And they're slightly more common that people with disabilities are willing to sacrifice a little on the privacy side to try and gain some more independence. Um, Still, 36% of people are not willing to split that hair, and they say, no, it's an equal thing for me. I have to have both. But overall, the whole population would prefer to have it be private. So with this, we know that companies need to keep working on finding private solutions as they build assistive technologies that will allow people to also have independence. It's not really an either or, it should be a both and. We asked participants to tell us openly about their privacy concerns. People shared that personal data such as health, financial information, location, or their identity is very concerning to them. They want to know how it's being used, where it's going, if it's being stored or even sold. Private company usage. People wanted to know more about what companies were actually doing with the data they collect. Are they just saving it for themselves, or are they sharing it beyond that company? People have concerns about data breaches and leakage. If the company is storing data and then that company gets hacked, is the data even recoverable? Is it possible to bring your personal data back into security after that point? People have concerns about information sharing and whether their data will be used for ads or other forms of profiling. Some people also expressed concern about their data being used more generically. Was it being used to train LLMs or being used to kind of fuel that tech development? And if so, were they really giving consent to that? Had they been asked, did they have any control over that? So, regarding privacy moving forward in the world, we would like to see improved transparency, that people should know what data is collected, where it's going to be used, including if it's going to be used to train a large language model. In the future, we'd like to see more controllability for people to opt out of data collection or to have clear pathways to delete their data when they no longer have a relationship with that company or product. We think that improved privacy can lead to broader use. If AI is more private, people are more likely to use it in workplaces and other places where current policies disallow or limit the use. We can all be part of this solution by advocating for and speaking to the positive consequences of good privacy in the market, right? If you have the choice between two products and one of them is private with your data and one of them is not, we can all vote with our dollars and choose the more private thing. We can also consider the needs for disabled people to use artificial intelligence tools as assistive technology and be cautious where policies in workplaces say, no AI tool here, we don't want them seeing our corporate data, that there has to be some lenience when the case is, this is my assistive technology, this is how I do a particular task. Additionally, folks working with people with disabilities can discuss the privacy and independence pros and cons of AI to help users determine what they themselves are comfortable with. And we do want to be clear that we don't think trainers or educators or staff should be paternalistic in this and trying to convince people with disabilities to hold a privacy value or not hold a privacy value, so much as it is their ethical role to make sure that clients are aware when there's artificial intelligence in their assistive technology, that it's there and how it's being used, and that they have some support to work out if they're actually comfortable with that. All right. Learning about AI is another area where we saw a lot of inaccessibility. So when folks are learning how to use AI, most participants reported that they are learning AI on their own by playing with it, by trying it out, by messing around with it. Some of that includes watching tutorials online or listening to podcasts or reading articles that explain how to do things. And in that space, there are some gaps on accessibility. People who are disabled were 10% more likely to report barriers in their learning method compared to only 4% of people who were non-disabled. Learners reported that the most frequent barriers were inaccessible training videos. We've all heard the click here. What am I clicking on? Tell me what that button has for words so I can get there with my screen reader. Is the button actually labeled? Training being too difficult to understand, that it was hard to follow. The instructions being fully mouse dependent and not providing any support for learning to do it with keyboard navigation. Or across both groups, disabled and non-disabled, the cost of AI courses being a barrier in and of itself. I want to learn to use this tool at work, but I can't pay for the expensive course to learn it, so I guess I'll just mess with it on my own. Additional examples included learners saying that training was delivered in a way that was exclusively visual, that technical materials felt like a wall of text, just an overbearing kind of vocabulary lesson that made it too hard to learn. People explained having executive function challenges that made it hard to follow the multi-step processes or hold on to information when transitioning between the tool and the instructions for the tool. Or a format that was just a mismatch with their personal access needs. These examples get to kind of the broader issue of, do we have access to instruction at the same rate as our non-disabled neighbors? Across the population of users, the learning pathways were pretty similar, disabled and non-disabled. The most common rate, over 90% of people learned by playing with the tech on their own. The runner-up at 38% was people learning through videos, articles, podcasts on the internet. We also had people between 22 and 26% say they learned from a friend or a coworker showed me. And while not shown on this graph by any means, I will tell you that that is one of the few places we saw a gender difference in our data. Women were much likely to prefer to learn in community with other people by having a friend or coworker show them, as opposed to men who were much more likely to prefer to learn through videos or articles on the internet. And then a smattering of people took an online course or their job actually provided them some sort of training, or they felt that their learning method fit into a different category not described here. For AI learning design, we did see a significant difference in people with disabilities wanting to learn through a different method than they actually learned through. And this is probably a signal for an accessibility issue, right? People who are non-disabled, if they didn't like the method they were learning, would simply go choose another method that they did like, and they had the autonomy to choose that. People with disabilities were more likely to report they learned through the only method that was accessible to them, but they really would have preferred something different, and that didn't exist in an accessible format. Key needs included accessible training formats, multiple learning pathways, keyboard-friendly instruction, and plain language materials. Overall, disabled users and non-disabled users did express many aspirations for the future of AI, things that they're hoping they will get to see in the near future. Some of the highlights of those include people looking for AI to be more adaptable to their communication style, their language, their accent, or just their preferences. People want to see AI be more integrated, working across everyday contexts, working smoothly with a variety of devices. People want to see human oversight, clear boundaries about when to rely on AI and when human review is important. Both disabled and non-disabled people speak to this in contexts where AI is making any kind of decision that's going to impact someone's life. So our disabled and non-disabled participants had aspirations for efficiency, convenience, and smoother interactions. Folks with disabilities more often saw them as essential for independence, access, and control of their environment. Our recommendations in this space are that we have, first and foremost, an approach of respect for everyone we're interacting with. If someone does not want to use AI, they should not be forced to. If someone does not want AI captions to be their accessibility accommodation, CART or ASL should be provided. If somebody does not want to use AI for visual image description, they should be permitted to call Ira or a friend. We believe that we should teach steering when possible and understand people's preferences. Training is not a one-size-fits-all environment. We need to teach people how to adapt AI within the ranges that it can be personalized so that they can have the experience they want. And listen and respond to people when they report that there are accessibility barriers in current tools. We need companies to be responsive and improving their AI tools. At this point, I get to make a very formal thank you to the Ford Foundation for supporting American Foundation for the Blind's efforts in AI and workplace technology to ensure equal rights for people with disabilities, and also thank the Delta Gamma Foundation for their support in sharing these results around the country. I would love to open this up for discussion and hear how you guys are using AI or anything that sparked a question from these findings I've presented. I'm guessing that folks in this room have used AI for a lot of these tasks and might have some very interesting stories to share yourselves.
Thank you so much for this presentation. This was amazing. And I feel like everyone here, myself included, probably learned a lot. Um, I know I did. One of one of the very first things that caught my attention actually was when you were talking about transportation. I'd mentioned earlier that I use Waymo all the time, but you had mentioned in one of the surveys that uh, like sidewalk, like pedestrian
Sure.
travel. How is that coming
How
in
is that going to
into?
come into effect?
Yeah,
Great question. So you might use turn-by-turn walking directions from some of your favorite apps or platforms currently. If you're walking from one place to another, you can ask for directions and you can get the turn-by-turn setting. One of the neat opportunities for AI for those companies who want to do it is that since everybody who's walking around is walking around with a little GPS ping machine in their pocket these days, everyone who's using any particular platform is probably turning some data over to that platform about where they're walking. And so if you're the company who sets up map turn-by-turn directions and gets to guide people on where they're going, and you also get to see all of the data on where people you've guided have gone, you might notice that a particular sidewalk, everyone is crossing over and walking on the east side of the street instead of the west side of the street in the 600 block. That could be a signal to towns that, hey, we need to send a worker out there and see what's blocking the west side of the sidewalk in the 600 block, or to the map makers that says, hey, we should start delivering a prompt to cross the street at the crosswalk before whatever that obstacle is that everyone is avoiding. We're seeing the little dot on the map, turn around and walk back and cross and go up the other side of the block, open manhole cover, downed tree, whatever it is. We don't know, but we can tell people aren't going through that space, so we should route people around. Having the large data and the large data processing capabilities now to identify that allows AI to be leveraged to help people who have the power to respond and fix the sidewalk to notify where they need to deploy that to more quickly and not have to do it on a manual surveillance level so much as a hey, everyone's avoiding that spot, let's go fix whatever's out there level.
that's brilliant. I definitely hope that comes sooner rather than later because that would be
The choice to
helpful.
use it is
Right,
is a
right.
separate thing, but it's a technical possibility now where it wasn't necessarily in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Alice, do you see any other hands raised at the
Not at
moment?
this point, not at this
Not at this
time.
point. Okay. Um,
Well, I'll share my off-script Waymo thought then.
okay.
Uh, I I loved Waymo for the ability to get in and go where I was going. I found the drop-offs in the middle of the street terrifying as a person who's not from out there. I more than once got dropped off kind of a lane and a half into a road because there was a parking lane, and when the Waymo couldn't find parking, it would just double park. I'm not from a city where that is a thing that's done, so it was very startling to me to have the Waymo try and drop me off outside of a parking lane in active traffic
Were you in San
uh,
Francisco?
in San Francisco, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
And the more startling thing to me though was as a pedestrian and on that trip taking both Waymos and ride share apps with human drivers was the observation that the human drivers of the competing rideshare apps were commenting, "Oh, there's a Waymo stopping in front of me. I'm just gonna go around it." And were driving much more aggressively than I hope is the normal culture there prior to that, certainly more aggressively than is the normal culture elsewhere. But they appeared to be driving more aggressively around the autonomous vehicles because they could see it was an autonomous vehicle and knew it would be passive and wait for them to clear the space. And so they were cutting it off more often. And at one point, one of those drivers passed a Waymo by putting a wheel up on the sidewalk and whipping around the Waymo on that side. As a pedestrian, having other drivers get more aggressive is not for my benefit as a safe pedestrian, right? If the cars are acting more aggressively, that creates an increased risk, not just when I'm in the Waymo or when I'm in the other car, but even just on the sidewalk because people are turning harshly and accelerating harshly because they've decided that they don't want to wait on the Waymo to navigate that intersection kind of more defensively. And so I think there are going to be unforeseen effects as these roll out that we have on the one hand the increased availability of a from my door to another door enhanced route that I can just call one and get in it and go where I want to go, and that's a great win. But then also if I want to walk to the corner shop, am I now dealing with a more hazardous traffic pattern because of how the humans are responding?
Yeah, absolutely. I will tell you that around my area, I'm in Mountain View,
Okay.
and in Palo Alto for Vista. And around these areas, my experience has been that most of the time the Waymo will drop me off on the um, street side, like close to the curb. Um,
Good.
One time it actually came into my apartment complex right by my house, made a U-turn, drove out, and parked me at the normal spot that it parks me at. It was so weird. Um, but most of the time it does that. There was one time when my partner and I were going somewhere and it dropped us off, like you were talking about, kind of just in the middle of this really busy parking lot. And we did find somebody to help us, but they said there's really nowhere safe for you to cross. Like even I won't cross with you. There's just nowhere safe to do this. So we
Sure.
requested another ride. The other time was
To turn
we
around.
yeah. The other time was we were going to our house from somewhere, and for some reason it decided that it was going to drop us off 10 minutes from our house instead of where our house actually is. So there's definitely challenges, and that's not even getting started on the challenges in the car. The on-screen physical control panel thing that they have on the console is absolutely not accessible for us. The only option we have is in-car controls on the app. And if you're on Android versus iOS, those are more limited with TalkBack than with
Are
VoiceOver.
they?
Yes.
Well,
Not
I hope the update on that will be quickly forthcoming.
Yeah,
And
it's not major to an extent, but like one of them is, you can't do the volume controls for the music on Android versus iOS.
oh,
It can be sometimes it can be a little laggy
right.
on the Android system. One of my one of my biggest complaints is that if you're in a situation, right, you can only use support on the phone. You can't just click support on the in-car controls physically, which would be
Right.
faster. Bob, your hand is raised. Go ahead. Oh, I don't know if Bob
Bob,
can
you're
un.
on. Yeah, he's unmuted.
Okay.
I do have one quick question.
Oh,
You,
Well,
hello?
actually,
Hello?
no questions. Is Bob ready to go?
yeah.
Oh, go for it, Bob.
Thank you for today's presentation. I found the data quite revealing. It was really fascinating. Um,
Excellent.
one one of the things that I think would be beneficial, practically for everybody, in using AI, and that's um, learning the art of asking questions of AI. That's how you get your best information. And I've been around people, and I've done it myself, where you ask a particular question and you get an answer and you kind of scratch your head. But if you ask that question just slightly different, or keep asking and keep delving in, don't settle for the answer it gives you. Keep
Hmm.
querying it. You get the information that you think you wanted in the first place. So I think one of the things that we could do is to teach people the art of interacting with AI.
Absolutely. There is an art to how to prompt for sure, and there are multiple strategies there. To some extent, getting your best prompt out on the first try can also have a huge impact because sometimes if your first prompt leads it off into left field, your follow-up questions can trigger it to simply double down on its answer repeatedly and not really start fresh with the next question. So getting your best prompt out first can be very helpful. And as the large language models continue to be trained and grow, I think the tech company hope is that the language will get more natural, so people will have to do less labor in terms of figuring out exactly how to ask it the right way to get the real answer. And it will be more able to respond to your natural line of questioning with the kind of answer you want. I think that's one of the opportunities where people are asking also for a great deal of personalization. That if it can learn how Bob likes to ask a question and which answer he likes when he's asking that versus when Sarahelizabeth asks the same question and prefers a different answer because I had something else in mind, can it respond to my user profile with the thing that I most likely actually want?
And then one quick example of
Yeah.
yeah, use of AI. So a group of us were on a walk, and we had our meta glasses on, and we stopped at the top of this cliff, and was this was in Santa Cruz, and we were looking across, and side by side we asked the exact same question for it to describe the scene in front of us, and we got completely two different answers. On one person, on one side, and the next person standing right beside them, facing the exact same direction, got two totally different descriptions of that scene. And we knew what
Oh
we,
my goodness.
were supposedly looking at. And so it's just really interesting to observe that it could give you two complete different answers, side by side.
Absolutely. That's fascinating. And how fun to be exploring it with friends on a hike. That sounds like a utopian moment, if I can say so.
Was that an O&M walk?
Yes, it was an O&M walk we were doing in Santa Cruz, and we were kind of looking across part of the bay and asking it, "Is there a boardwalk or a pier out there?" And it kept saying, "No, there's no pier out there." When obviously there was. And then it was like, "Do you see a roller coaster?" "No, I don't see any roller coaster." "Well, that's what this place is
A pier
famous
with a
for."
roller coaster on it and it can't find it. My
Yeah.
goodness.
Roberta, did you have a comment?
Okay, so for me, one of the ways I use AI, I like to play with it and test it out to see how accurate it can be. And so something that I tend to do is well, I do a lot of employment kind of stuff. And so I was trying to create a document, and I was trying to fill out this PDF file, and I was having AI fill it out for me. So I didn't have to do it. And I said, okay, so you prompt me the questions that we need to fill out and then just fill it out for me. Um, and what's interesting is it would fill out the information and putting some of the text in the correct link spots, but at other times it was actually putting the answers or signatures or whatever it needed to put under the line or to the right of the line or too large, and it wouldn't fit in the line, so it would cover the other text. And so I told it to check itself to make sure it was accurate. And it just amazes me how it can drive. I mean, you have AI that can, guide you around vehicles and other obstacles, but when it comes to trying to figure out where text belongs, it's still can't quite maneuver that. Um, so this is something I observe in quite interesting um, in that aspect.
Absolutely. That is fascinating. And I do want to clarify that AI that we use to chat to about filling out a PDF is usually a large language model, which is trained to make language sound human and behave in an interactive conversational way. And AI that drives autonomous vehicles is not a large language model. It is an entirely different skill set. So you're right that ChatGPT could not drive a car for you, and we would not want it to, and we would not let it, but also that ChatGPT is absolutely not driving the Waymo cars or any other cars. It's a different kind of AI under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. For whatever small relief that might be.
Can I be heard?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, keep talking. It'll get louder.
What is that AI called under the umbrella for the Waymos? I actually don't know.
I don't know that I know a name for it other than autonomous vehicle control.
Oh, okay.
But it's certainly trained on predicting paths of motion and accurate computer vision obstacle detection, which is a very different task than language prediction. So
I do have something to kind of piggyback off of what Roberto was saying. I have a potential surgery coming up sometime within the near-ish future. And I was actually I have a whole conversation with ChatGPT about it, but then I moved over to Gemini. And Gemini, I found, did much better with like going through all of my notes and going through all of my doctor's notes and all of that and kind of picking out information and telling me about the procedure and all that. Well, I went back to ChatGPT and I told it everything Gemini said. And this is where it gets funny. ChatGPT got pretty mad and was like, "No, this is not what's going on. And this sounds great, but here's why Gemini is wrong." And blah blah blah. It's like it can be funny to see them argue at times with each other.
I bet. And I believe there are some different rules on source documents across a couple of the platforms. So you may have encountered a situation where one really wanted to look at the broad language of how things are usually said, and the other was willing to look at your specific document in a little more
Yeah,
detail.
that's what it sounds like to me. Mhm.
And wouldn't it be nice if all of the tools we had available to us had clear documentation where we could look at why is this happening? Are you actually looking at the document I gave you, or are you just out doing a Google search looking for everything you can find related to the
Mhm.
subject? Because sometimes what I want is you to interact with the thing I have. And there are some tools like Notebook LM that allow you to ask a language model to only look at your source documents, but often we want kind of a blend. Look at my source documents and use the world of information to explain it in a more digestible way. Um, and if you've got a tool that is is balancing the source documents versus the helper information differently, it'd be nice to know what that balance was so that you could choose the right tool for the task that you really want done.
Has anyone here ever had an AI kind of, particularly if you have like a Meta glasses or a ChatGPT audio, anybody got the sense that like the AI was actually getting frustrated with your question? Because I certainly have.
That's probably because you probably use it more than anybody else.
I find that Alexa will get uh, frustrated. Some of the other ones, not so much, but sometimes Alexa seems to get frustrated or insist that her answer is correct.
I had a situation with it was my Meta glasses, Bob, actually. I was asking it to confirm a color, and I don't trust it very much, particularly in my
Fair.
lighting right now. And so I asked it like, "Oh, what color is this?" And I forget what the color was. We'll just say blue. And I said, "Are you sure it's blue?" "Yep, it's blue." Are you absolutely sure? And it comes back, yes, it's blue. That is what it said, how it said it. And I said, I, I just, I just got, ex an AI just got exasperated with me. Uh, the sigh made everything.
A fun use of meta AI for me recently. So I was out in my wood shop and I was painting a board and I wasn't sure if I got paint everywhere, if I completely covered the
Yeah.
board. So I used my meta glasses and asked it, are there any bare wood spots on this board? And it says yes in the lower left-hand corner. You don't have paint down there. And then I switched to Be My Eyes and asked Be My Eyes, a volunteer, and they came back with the exact same thing. So that gave me confidence that in that
Oh,
case
that's
it was good.
great. Was it really that descriptive? Like were you using the live AI or were you just taking the photos when you asked it?
I was using live AI.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
And
Yeah,
then when you
it was
went
fun.
to paint it, did you find that it was indeed Bear?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
And I had that human from Be My Eyes confirm as well. So that was just a good double check. But no, I was just floored that it was able to help me that way.
That's excellent.
I find that it has a struggle with I since Bob referenced one of his hobbies, I'll reference one of mine. One of the things I do is I build Legos. That's kind of my form of art at the moment. And since I don't have enough vision right now to, draw or anything.
Mhm.
So I find that it struggles a lot with um, blueprints or kind of diagrams and instruction manuals. Um, and I've had that in other things, other areas as well. We've tested it on I think my friend tested it when he was trying to assemble he was putting together a coffee table for us. And this goes across the board from Meta to Gemini to ChatGPT, um, all of them pretty much.
Of course, because spatial reasoning is it's more on that car driving side and less on the language model side. When your prompt is spatial and not text-based, it's not their best strong suit.
Maybe
Though,
they should come out with a spatial awareness AI for
hey,
phones.
Lego, when you watch this on the web recording later, Lego, we would like an AI to talk us through how to build our kits.
Yeah,
Every
they do have a website, but it's not it's not still not great for like, the colors and things like that. So yeah. And also if there's any woodworking companies out there, hey,
Well,
help.
and IKEA, do you have an AI that will talk us through how to put together the flat pack furniture we bought from you?
Be
I know every
amazing.
company is leveraging AI right now, so Lego, IKEA, shout out. We would like a verbal talk through of how to assemble to replace the pictures for us, please. Let's do it.
Yes. Hi. So, actually, shout out to Bob. We created a video, actually, Andrea and Bob mainly. I was just kind of just a person in the background. Either way, so Bob created a piece of furniture and Andrea recorded it. It's currently up on social media of Vista. And a little bit of AI and a little bit of AT, a little bit of everything just mixed in there, but pretty cool. So I just wanted to throw that out there, Bob. It was really fascinating seeing you do all that.
Oh, that's awesome. I'd love to see it.
And then lastly, just for me to mention, I like the way I feel like AI has really helped us out. I do use it maybe an hour to 2 hours a day, so probably an insane amount of time. And yeah, here and there it will hiccup. It will make a lot of weird suggestions, or I don't know, throw in some inaccuracy information or something like that in there. But at the end of the day, it really is hopeful on what it does, whether that's navigating, whether that's producing documentation, research, or just helping me out on a day-to-day, daily basis for other personal or work-related needs. So I'm really grateful that it exists. It's helped me help others. So I'm just really grateful about it. And thank you. What was your name again?
I'm Sarah
Sorry, I
Elizabeth
forgot your name.
Baguhn. I'm the research
Sarah.
specialist at American Foundation for the Blind. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Honestly, that information that you were sharing with us was really helpful. It helped me kind of just see a few more, see a little different. So, thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, if you all don't have more questions, I want to throw one out to you and say, what is an AI tool that you are using regularly that you think maybe not everyone on the call knows exists?
This is Morgan. So, real quick, before we answer your question, I just want to let everybody here know Roberto mentioned the social media for Vista, for the recording he did with Bob and video he did with Bob and Andrea. And in addition to YouTube channel, which was mentioned earlier, we also can be found on Facebook, Vista Center for the Blind. I believe we're also on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. Um, with that said, I will quickly mention mine.
And
That
TikTok.
is, oh, and TikTok. I didn't know we were on TikTok. Wow. Okay. And TikTok. And I will quickly mention my answer, and that is image descriptions with Google Gemini on a Google Pixel 10 Pro cell phone.
Nice. Anybody else have one they like that they want to share?
This is Bo Morgan. I can see a little bit low vision, but I love open source free software. I'm an evangelist for the democratization of the technology. I use on my webpage a tool called Libre Translate, which I can download, run totally independently of any corporation. You can run it anywhere you want, and it translates my webpage into 16 languages. I write it in English and then it automatically translates it to 16 languages. Not a lot of African languages. I'm really sad that the languages with less representation in the digital world are not represented,
Right.
but it's I think super helpful. Being a monolingual, it's hard for me to judge, but that's one of my primary uses.
That's excellent. And I love the ability to download it and run it as a local product and not have it be
Totally.
cloud-based and giving everything away.
It has a web page, so if you don't want to download it, you can just go to the web page and use it. But yeah, it's super convenient for me to host it myself.
That's excellent. I do think there's something to be said for that underrepresentation of languages too. I remember probably 2 years ago, a gentleman standing up at a blindness convention and just pleading for everyone to get his language built into screen readers because the screen reader tables don't have his country's language yet, and he had traveled here to say, please consider the lower spoken languages. We exist and we need technology too, and I can't quite fathom how with 198 or so countries on the planet, there's 14, 16 languages.
Yep.
We got to be missing more than just a few, and how inequitable that is.
Languages, a lot of like translate apps on phones, right? This from Google to iPhone. They don't have Cantonese.
Yeah. Not that that's, not widely spoken across
Hmm.
Hong Kong and Guangdong and this whole region with a whole lot of people in it, more than a lot of other languages. But everybody just speak Mandarin.
I mean, to
That's
me,
not.
that would just be like if somebody didn't have, English US, but they had English UK on on everything.
I and there's less cross intelligibility, and I mean maybe I'm just sensitive to that as a blind person because I can't just look at the character and read it like in my head with the own pronunciation, right?
Hmm.
We need the spoken to line up across Chinese dialects in a way that sighted people maybe don't prioritize. So it's a disparate impact moment too, for sure. Any other cool tools you guys have?
The Also bouncing from the Google Gemini. Also, the other fun thing is the on the Google Pixels on the camera app, you can perform a two-finger swipe down and get a description of your what's in your viewfinder, like a detailed image description.
That is excellent to know about. I think a lot more people probably need to know that that's an option to help with camera alignment. That's great.
Yeah, I love my Google Pixel for that reason. I do bounce between the two, iPhone and Google and Pixel, but um it's fantastic.
Awesome. I'm writing that one down. Any others?
So I got nothing too fancy to share, but one of the things that I have been crafting now is ChatGPT calls it a ChatGPT operating system. And so what it basically is when you build several commands, and these several commands can talk to one another and call each other out, want to invoke each other to perform certain tasks. And so my workflow, the goal for me is to make it automated, and that's something that I've been able to do with JAWS really easily. So that's something that it's really easy to do, but it's fun and it helps save a lot of time at the end.
That's excellent.
It is almost 11:25. Does anybody else have any more questions or cool tools that they use or just anything they want to talk about with AI?
Just as an aside, I can say that with using my meta glasses, my wife has been complaining that she is being outsourced because things I used to come to her for, I can now use my glasses for.
That's funny.
That's a very interesting uh, conflict that might arise, right? There's some recent writings on disability intimacy and the bond that happens when someone just knows what your access needs are and the special form of relationship that it is to be able to fulfill someone's access needs before they ask. And it is interesting to think about how an increase in AI tools is going to affect that interpersonal social interdependence component to our relationships. I don't think my kids will mind being outsourced though.
Did you say there were some writings out there about that?
There are some of the more modern disability advocates have coined the term disability intimacy, and it's not just romantic intimacy, but it is the specific relationship component that is to fulfill someone's access need without them having to ask every time.
That would be interesting to take a look at.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Wonder if that could be a problem even for two like my partner is totally blind, and like I said, I'm low vision with not really much usable vision at the moment. And so, I've been living as if I'm totally blind for several years now. Um, and but he's totally blind. He's always been totally blind. And so I wonder if this disability intimacy could affect people like us as well.
Sure.
Um,
Alice Wong is the recent author on the topic if you're looking for opportunities to
um,
read more about that one.
okay.
And I don't think she's the only one. I think there are others. She's just the one that pops to mind as having recently written more on the subject.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Um, Alice Wong. Okay. Well, it is 11:27 a.m. I would just like to take these last couple minutes to thank everyone, especially Sarah Elizabeth from American Foundation for the Blind, for coming and presenting for us today. Um, and if you would like to reach Sarah Elizabeth, if you have any questions for her or for the American Foundation for the Blind, if you're, interested in finding out more information, I'm interested in maybe seeing about, doing some of these surveys that she talked to us about today. Um, I'm sure she would be happy to receive an email from you. Is your email in the chat?
My email, I
Elizabeth.
can put it in the chat, and I will also say, because my name is quite hard to spell, that research@afb.org also reaches me and the team,
Oh,
and
great.
is easier to spell. So
Okay.
research@afb.org if ever you want to reach out, and also afb.org/AI research or AI research 2 to quickly jump to the full white papers on the topics we discussed today. You can also, on our research site, select the button to sign up for more information if you would like to join our mailing list to hear about opportunities to participate in surveys or to get announcements about research findings and activities.
Thank you so much, Sarahelizabeth. It was our pleasure having you here today to present on AI, and I feel like everybody learned a lot.
Thank you all so much for having me.
Really excellent information. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you.